I've said before that Hillary Clinton was trying to break the ultimate glass ceiling to become the first woman president of the United States. Now, some people say that because she didn't get elected, she did not break the glass ceiling. I disagree with that vigorously. So for all of whatever faults you would like to attribute to her, she did break the glass ceiling. She just didn't get the job. And what I mean by that is far more people voted for her gender than against it. So she said, I've heard her say that sexism was at least part of the reason she didn't win. There's definitely sexism in the world, and some people, I'm sure, it was a big country with lots of voters, I'm sure some people said, I don't want a woman in charge. I never heard a single person say that. The entire process, I personally never heard one person say that. Not a serious person. It might have been like funny tweets or something. But probably by a ratio of maybe 10 to 1, just a guess, people voted for her gender, whereas maybe 1 in 10 voted against it. So on net, it was probably outrageously positive. But here's the interesting thing. If you doubt my claim that she did break the glass ceiling, she just didn't get the job, which you could separate, right? Because the next person who runs for president and is a woman and is also qualified, that conversation isn't even going to happen. Nobody's going to say, well, there's a woman running for president. I don't think a woman can get elected. That's history. Whatever you think of Hillary Clinton, she did break the glass ceiling. It's not there anymore. It's not going to stop anybody, right? They just have to have, the skill to get elected. Case in point, Oprah Winfrey. When Oprah's name rose yet again as someone who could run for president, immediately and universally, people said, yeah, she could get the job. The only thing that would stop Oprah from becoming elected president, well, there are two things that could stop Oprah from being president. One is running against Trump. That's not going to work. Yeah, she could run against anyone else and win. And I know the polls show that she might even beat Trump, but that's before he gets before he gets a bite on her. They may be friendly, but he would eviscerate her in that kind of a contest. Now, keep in mind that one of the things that Oprah has done, not just for herself and for the company that employs lots of people, and also for her audience, but for the entire black community. Here's what Oprah did for all of us. I shouldn't say just the black community, but they might be benefited the most in this context. What Oprah did was to develop possibly the best public reputation anyone ever had. Black, white, pink, blue. Nobody's ever, I don't believe anybody's ever developed a full, sort of comprehensive, multi-decade public persona that is so universally respected. Yes, people, there's always going to be somebody who's a critic. But man, she nailed it. She has the best reputation you could ever have. And so you can't discount how important that is to our overall sense of, racial everything, right? Now imagine if she ran for president. Her solid gold reputation would be chopped in half at least. All right. So the people who are Democrats, let's say she ran as a Democrat, probably would. They're still going to like her, and they're not going to believe the dings against her that come out in the race. But on the right, people are going to believe it, and they're going to think that she's a horrible person by the time she was done with the political race. So she would take one of the greatest assets ever created, which is brand Oprah. Just one of the greatest brands of all time. And she would ruin it, right? By ruining it, I mean half of it would be ruined because half of the country would dislike her quite a bit, and it would affect what products they purchased. So when I said Oprah won't run for president because she's too smart, I do mean that as a compliment. Because if she ran, she'd have a good chance of winning against anybody but Trump. So if she waited, 4 years, I think she could just walk into the job if she wanted to. But I don't think she's dumb enough to want to. But here's the interesting thing. Was there any point in which we were talking about Oprah running for president in which any serious person said, well, she'll never get elected because she's a woman? Didn't hear it. She'll never get elected because she's black. Well, Obama took care of that, right? Nobody's going to say that again. Can't get elected because you're black. You don't ever have to have that conversation again. But I would argue that Hillary Clinton so thoroughly destroyed the glass ceiling, albeit without getting the job. She did get the most votes, You can't take that away from her, even though that's not what it takes to get elected. She got the most votes. And you can see how quickly that impact of Hillary's example, if you will, rippled through our consciousness, through society. Because when we started talking about Oprah, her gender and her ethnicity were never part of the conversation. Think about that. Just think about what a big frickin' deal that is. In this country that's trying to heal from, legitimate racial, issues, many of them made worse by President Trump. Love him if you will, but you can't argue that his existence has worsened racial feelings, at least. Even in that context, when Oprah's name comes up, 0 people out of 350 million, or however many were looking at the situation, 0 of them said, well, she's a woman, she can't become president. None. 0. There is no glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton did that for you. All right. So hate her as much as you want for policies and anything else you want, right? But don't take that away from her, because that was a big frickin' deal, and she owns that. So, give her that. Does anybody want the best response when you say President Trump is good for the economy, and you list all the reasons that the economy is good, and then the other side says, well, that's Obama. He just inherited a good economy. Here is the persuasive answer. I'll give you the long version and then the short version. The long version is that you need the right president for the right situation. And the situation changes. So the right personality could be in the wrong time and not be effective. I would argue that when President Obama came into office, the economy was on looking off the edge of a cliff. People were frightened for good reasons. It looked like the whole world was going to fall apart. In that situation, where you're literally afraid that tomorrow the entire civilization will go to hell, do you want a President Trump? As much as you love him, and I know a lot of you do, I would argue not the right president for that situation. For a 2008 situation, 2009, when the economy is going off the cliff, you want the voice that even the critics say, well, at least he's a lawyer, he's looking at the details, he's talking to the experts, he's saying calming things, he's not making any gaffes, he's not causing trouble, he's concentrating on this job. So I would say that Obama was really kind of a perfect president for that time. Now, you could say he did other things wrong, and I'm not going to argue about that, but I'm just talking about the economics. Then you get to a point where the economy has recovered quite a bit. This is what Democrats will tell you, and if you look at any of the charts, it's pretty clear that Obama took us from a deep hole to a gradual, but you wish it was faster, improvement. So he created a strong base that he handed off to President Trump. Now, I give President Obama, and this would apply to any last president when you have a new one in the first year, the prior president is going to be 75% of whatever's happening in the first year of the new presidency. So if you say, no, it's all Trump, that is not persuasive. It's also not true. And it's so obviously not true that it can't be persuasive. So you need to pace your audience a little bit. So you need to agree with them on the things you agree on before you disagree with them on something else. All right? First, you say something that's agreeable. And what I usually say is that in the first year of the Trump presidency, I give Obama 75% of the credit for, he really turned a very bad situation, the economy did it, but he was the steward at the time, a very bad situation into a strong base that was slowly improving. But now here's the next question. If you've got an economy that is basically in good shape, but it could be a lot better, right? There's no real risk that we're going to have a depression next year, but we could do a lot better. What's the perfect personality for that situation as president? President Trump. He is the perfect president for 2018, 2017 as well. Because we had an economy that was basically in place. All the parts were there. It was chugging along pretty well. But what it didn't have is that extra juice. It didn't have the energy. It didn't have the optimism. It didn't have the cheerleader. It didn't have the active persuasion where he goes and says, I'm bringing, I talked to this company. I'm over in Asia and I made a deal to buy some more military equipment and airplanes. These guys are moving back to this country. Hey, I'm going to give credit to Carrier and Ford. Forget about all the details. Collectively, this stuff is what brought the small business confidence level to its highest level, I think, ever. And when you have high consumer confidence, it of course has an impact on hiring because you're hiring to get ready for this good year is coming right away. So that's the long version. The quick answer is this. When you say Trump's good for the economy, the Democrat says, that's all Obama. It's Obama's economy. You say 75% of it is, if you're talking about the first year. 25% is doing the stuff that Obama couldn't do, or he was just the wrong personality for it. He wasn't a cheerleader. He wasn't a persuader, at least in an economic sense. And that's what the current president, has added on top of it. So in 2018 and beyond, that 75% that I give to Obama decreases. By the end, it's more like 75-25 the other direction. What are the percentages for the second year? It's closer to 50-50. Obviously these are not statistical, scientifically determined numbers, but in terms of making your point, if you acknowledge that Obama gave us a strong base, then you're in much better shape to convince somebody that President Trump and his specific way of leading, his optimism, his persuasion, and his cutting of regulations and cutting taxes and all those things are all part of the collective psychology of the economy. So we had two presidents who were exactly the right presidents for the time in which they served. You've had President Obama, calm, collected, looks at all the details, great in a financial emergency when the biggest problem is you're worried. If you just stop worrying, things will fix themselves. So Obama helped us stop worrying and things fix themselves. Now you need a little extra juice. You need a little pizzazz. You need a little cheerleading. You need a little optimism. You need a little drive, a little more. You just need more. Obama didn't have that. He wasn't the right personality for that. But Trump, he brings the full package.